Well, I guess the subject of today's video might appear a little old after the release of the new DLC, because it's not related to the new things brought by the Ashes of Ariandel, but it's one of the older topics I've been wanting to discuss for a long time already, but for months I couldn't make it fit any video I made. However, actually I believe that the things I found are rather interesting and even lead to some rather exciting, yet uncertain speculations. So, I guess this subject deserves to be finally discussed in a separate video, and I hope that you'll agree with me. So, Oceiros, the Consumed King. When I first encountered this name it gave me quite a lot of problem really. Oceiros. Is it somehow connected to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, resurrection in the Egyptian mythology? Or maybe it's related to the Latin Oceiros meaning about to hate, about to detest, a future active participle of Odin meaning hate, dislike. Or, maybe it could even be somehow derived from Ceres, name of Roman goddess of the bounty, which is derived from Proto-Italic kriau, to make grow. Well, none of such theories seemed to be fitting enough, so at the first look Oceiros seems to be quite a mysterious name. However, looking at the Japanese name of this character actually clarifies a lot of things about him. The thing is that the original game's text is in Japanese, and is only later translated into English, even though the names the devs pick for their characters often have Germanic or Celtic roots. However, it's not the case with Oceiros. So, in Japanese, name Oceiros is written as Osirosu, which can be Latinized as Osiroisu. However, in fact, Oceiros doesn't seem to be the correct pronunciation of this name, as the original name Osirosu is rather a Japanese transcription of Osiros. I apologize for the TTS pronunciation. Since U in Su is pronounced really short, devoiced between consonants, and often is used in transcriptions of foreign words to represent simple S, rather than Su. So, taking that into account, the correct pronunciation would be as Osiros, and Osiros is actually a name of Persian origins, or, more correctly a Hellenized form of the Persian name Khosrov, also Latinized as Khosrow, 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 Khosraw, Hosros. The name Hosro originates from the old Iranian Husrava meaning one of good reputation, which is ultimately derived from Proto-Indo-European elements Hisu meaning good, kind plus close meaning fame, and was a name of several Parthian, Armenian, and Sassanid monarchs. However, Hosro is also used as a noun meaning king, emperor, monarch, shah. And in such case Oceiros' name would simply mean king, monarch, which pretty much describes him as a king of Lothric. So, I believe it's hardly a coincidence, and I guess it's the real meaning of the name Oceiros, or rather Osiros, which was either purposefully obscured when translating from Japanese to make it a little more mysterious and maybe avoid associations with the historical Eastern rulers, or certain other related subject that we'll discuss a little later in the video. Or, possibly it was simply mistakenly spelled this way due to the wrong interpretation of Su sound. And, speaking of the Japanese version of the game's text, the title of Oceiros in it isn't exactly a consumed king, though maybe in English it describes his fate better, as the title used for him in Japanese version is Yo-O, formed from O, king, monarch, and Yo, mystic, weird, bewitched, calamity, apparently derived from Chinese language where it bears meanings of demon, witch, monster. So, the original title of Oceiros would be rather Witch King or Bewitched, Magic King, Monarch, which would actually fit him as in attempts to create a perfect hair. He eventually went mad in worship of Seth the Scaleless Pale Drake and his magic. Also, the meaning of calamity seems rather peculiar, as it would fit Oceiros well. Thus consumed might not only be referring to his obsession with dragons and creating a perfect hair, but also the grief. But that might as well be coincidence. However, what's really interesting is that the fact that his name is rather Osiros provides us some really exciting possible parallels, though, I must warn you that the following is a rather wild speculation, and, although I discuss such things rather often in my videos, I don't really like when some speculations without a really solid basis are presented as facts, so I'm not telling that the following would be a 100% definite stuff, as was Story of Wilhelm, for example. But still it's extremely interesting and intriguing, so I can't just ignore it. The thing is that the name Oceiros, a historical name of Parthian kings, was used as a name of a character in Arslan Senki, a heroic legend of Arslan, a Japanese fantasy novel series written by Yoshiki Tanaka, which is strongly based on Persian epic of Emir Arslan. So, be now wary of Arslan Senki spoilers. In this fantasy novel, Oceiros V is a former king, deceased by the time of the story's events, of Kingdom of Pars, and an elder brother of its current ruler Oceiros III. It is rumored that Oceiros was in fact assassinated by his younger brother, in order to seize power in the country, as Oceiros died under some rather suspicious circumstances. But the really exciting part is that in the story Oceiros also had a son named Hilmas, who was a pretender to the Persian throne and was thought to be killed at the age of 11 when his house was set afire, as he was left there to die by his uncle Oceiros. Only in truth, although suffering heavy burns on his face, Hilmas survived and returns in the story as the major antagonist known as Lord Silvermask, for the mask he wears to conceal his burns, which makes him rather reminiscent of a certain Dark Souls 3 character, namely, Ringfinger Leonhard, who, in his youth, suffered grave burns to his entire body. His face in particular, which he hides beneath his silver mask, was terribly scalded. Leonhard is also told to be born into royalty, pretty much like Hilmas, son of Oceiros. By the by, the text that reveals Leonhard's origins is also very reminiscent of the description of the royalty class of demons' souls. Now, the most exciting thing that I wanted to discuss since the times I was working on the video about the legacy of Gwendolyn, but failed to make it fit my previous videos, though also a wildest speculation. The burns, mask and being of royal blood might be not the only things in common between Leonhard and Hilmas, as Leonhard wields a rather peculiar crescent moon sword that actually has some luno-magic powers, not unlike those of the traditional Moonlight Greatsword of From Software's games. In Dark Souls 3 this sword is obtained by transposing the soul of Oceiros, or Oceiros, who was turned into a dragon-like creature. While it's stated that Crescent Moon Blade was actually inherited by Leonhard, though we'll return to this matter a little later in the video. So, given the other parallels between Hilmas, son of Oceiros of Arslan Senki, and Leonhard of Dark Souls 3, could it be that Leonhard is also a son of Oceiros, or rather Oceiros, in English translation? Maybe the lost child Ocelot. As, for example, Leonhard's weapon of choice is a sword with lunar magic similar to that of the blade created from the soul of Oceiros. Also, we find Leonhard in the Firelink Shrine leaning against the base of the throne prepared for Prince Lothric, King's son. Another interesting thing might be that the name Leonhard is composed from elements Leo, lion and heart, brave, hardy, strong, while name Ocelot seems to be rather similar to Ocelot, also known as dwarf leopard, featuring the word with the same Leo root, though it might pretty much be just a coincidence. But could there be some relation, parallels in these big cats' names? Yet, I'd note that Ocelot could also be Oceloth, for instance, a combination of Os of his father's name and Loth from Lothric, though I don't think that it would be a correct name that way. And returning to our assumption, even though it's a matter of enormous speculation, which might actually shed some more light on the relation between Leonhard and Rosaria, the mother of the rebirth whom he serves as one of her fingers. For, as we discussed in the All Lore About Rosaria video, Rosaria seems to be related to Gwyn's family in one way or another, and particularly to Guinevere, who is also, at least, related to the Queen of Lothric, the spouse of Oceiros, if not is the Queen of Lothric herself, which is very likely. In addition to that, in the Cathedral of the Deep, where we find Rosaria, we encounter the Cathedral Knights, whose shields bear the symbol of Old King of Lothric, and whom we also find guarding the consumed King's Garden, not far from the King Oceiros himself. Naturally, it's possible that Cathedral Knights are sent from Lothric to guard the cathedral due to the monarch duty before the church to provide it protection, but another wild speculation might be that their real task there is actually to guard some member of royal family and that they're actually royal bodyguards in the first place. But, again, it's only a blatant speculation, but in case if Rosaria is indeed related to the Lothric's queen and its royal family, Leonhard and Rosaria might actually be relatives, which makes their relationship even more weird and tragic, and also provides more motives for Leonhard's actions, likely aimed to save Rosaria's soul. Quite intriguing, isn't it? But, naturally, such theory faces several serious problems. First of all, Leonhard is obviously of an ordinary human size, unlike the Yai brothers of Lothric for example, so it's a serious argument against Leonhard being Ocelot, one of the children of Lothric royal family, though, could it be that he was just a dwarf leopard in this regard? Also, regarding Ocelot, The problem is that he's more like a newborn child. In the game's cut content it may be found that there was actually a skeleton for a newborn baby model placed in the hand of Oceiros, and there also was a texture of dead baby for that model, so it seems that initially it was planned to have Oceiros hold an actual baby in his hand during the boss fight, and even Oceiros himself is modeled with baby Ocelot in mind. His body is deformed, twisted so that he covers the baby in his left hand with his entire body, his back, neck. But it looks like the idea was later discarded, as, well, slaying newborn babies during the boss fights would probably cause problems about the game's ratings, so in the end, we can only hear the newborn cries during the boss fight, but there's no baby itself. However, the real name of Oceiros and his possible relation to Leonhard, parallels to Oceiros and his son Leonhard Arslan Senki, could actually be a way to deal with the changes in the concept of this boss, who knows. Only, another problem is the description of the Crescent Moon Blade, that states that Leonhard set out on a journey of rebirth, but decided instead to serve the goddess as a knight, and inherited this weapon, which kinda implies that he was given this weapon already after he came to Rosaria's service. Thus possibly it's Rosaria who got the blade related to moonlight dragons, thus could possibly be related not only to Guinevere, but also Oceiros. But, of course, it's only one of the possibilities. Maybe Leonhard didn't receive the sword from Rosaria, or maybe he did, but the blade wasn't related to Oceiros, or, for instance, the Crescent Moon sword might actually be related to Gwynelyn's dark moon magic, as Leonhard is actually armed with an ordinary shotgun most of the time, and has the Crescent Moon sword only in Orlando, which was governed by Gwynelyn. Even though it's said that this sword is Leonhard's weapon of choice. However, Leonhard is pretty much the most important member of Rosaria's covenant, which is pretty much the opposite of the Dark Moon Blade's covenant, and, even though technically he kills Rosaria, his actions are in fact driven by his belief that he's saving his goddess, her soul, by doing so. On the other hand, it may be speculated that he in fact believes that he serves Guinevere or her relative, which could more or less fit the covenant of the Dark Moon Blades who serve the gods of Orlando. All of that mixed with apparently not really stable mind of the ring finger, of course. But I'd say that it's somewhat a little too complicated. Also, looking at the effects of Crescent Moon Sword's magic, they're still pretty much the same with those of Moonlight's Great Sword, associated with pale dragons, rather than Dark Moon magic. We can see that the colors are similar, hear that the sounds are similar too. So I believe it's more like it hints that Crescent Moon Sword is more akin to the Moonlight Greatsword of Pale Dragons. However, we may recall certain crossbreed creature who is related to the Dark Moon Covenant and, at the same time, could be related to a certain scaleless Pale Drake. But I guess we better not delve too deep in this matter within this particular video, as I'd like it to be more focused on the etymology of Oceiros, and all the interesting parallels about Arslan Senki that it possibly provides. And speaking of the theory about relation between Oceiros and Leonhard, I must say that despite how exciting it is, it also has some serious problems about it, so it can only be considered as a wild, although extremely interesting, speculation, and that's why I kinda hesitated to discuss it in a video. But, who knows, the inconsistencies could be just a result of change in the concept of the Oceiros boss and means of dealing with it, as there were some strange things with Izalith lore that we discussed in one of my previous etymology videos, caused by the problems and changes when working on that location. But let's finally proceed to other peculiar things. Actually, there are some more possible parallels between Dark Souls and Arslan Senki. For instance, in the story Silvermouse Kilmas falls in love with the blind princess Irina, while Leonhard seems to have affection for Rosaria, who is muted. Also, blind Irina of Arslan Senki seems to be reminiscent of blind Saint Irina, Maiden of the Way of White in Dark Souls 3. Though, I wouldn't say that it's a direct Arslan Senki only reference, as Irina, who was meant to become a Firekeeper, but wasn't able to deal with all the overwhelming humanity swarming inside of her, actually has some similarities to Anastasia of Dark Souls 1, a Firekeeper and a Maiden of the Way of White, who also has a Greek name associated with Orthodox Christian saints, as does Irina. And as we discussed in one of my very first lore videos, there are actually historical connections between Saints Irina and Anastasia, so Irina's name could actually be chosen not as a reference to Irina of Arslan Senki, while as we discussed in the previous etymology videos, the meaning of her name also contrasts with the meaning of the name of the knight whose job is to protect her. At the same time we can see that Anastasia was muted, while Irina is blind, but Rosaria is muted, and Leonhard serves Rosaria, being himself similar both to Hilmaz and Lordric, who kills Anastasia, which all, however, could be just a coincidence. So, I'd say it's just Dark Souls, where many different possible parallels, meanings, references merge together rather organically, beautifully and make it even more interesting to explore. And, I guess that would be it for this video. I hope that it was interesting for you, although, truth to speak, even as I finish making this video I'm still in certain doubts whether should I publish it or not, because I don't really like discussing such uncertain things as some of the stuff we covered in this video, feeling kinda guilty for spending the viewers' time on speculations, rather than 100% proven stuff. But at the same time, these speculations seem to be quite interesting, even if we look at them as on pure coincidences. So still, after months of postponing, I finally finished the making of this video. So thanks for watching. I hope that this video was interesting for you, and maybe you'd like to check out other of my lore, etymology or cosplay videos. Also, check out the link in the video's description for the alphabetical list of names I've discussed in my videos so far. It's not yet the etymology dictionary I started working on, only a first preparation for it, but it's a list of names and links to the moments in videos where their etymology is discussed, so I hope that it will make it easier to find the names you're interested in. Also, aside of the etymology things, I hope to maybe post some interesting notes, too short for the videos, in that blog, if I'll have free time from making new videos, of course. And, what do you think about the meaning of Oceiros' name and the possible parallels we discussed today?